Welcome back, you guys, to the Butterfly Season podcast. I have Sydney Webb on the podcast today, and I recommend you get a paper and a pen because you are going to be wanting to take a lot of notes. We are talking about health. We're talking about downgrading your DNA, upgrading your DNA, heal yourself from autoimmune, cancer, and most importantly about her brand Toto. Sydney is a beautiful human being inside and out, like not just on a soul level, but like literally she's like healed her organs on the inside through food. So you won't want to miss this. This is a great podcast and I'm excited for you guys to dive in. Sydney, I am so stoked to have you on the podcast. Here's why. When you and I got to chat about like why you started the brand, where it came from, even just like when I went on your Instagram, I was like, this is the vibiest cookie brand. Cookie brand doesn't even feel like the appropriate word. Is that how you would know? Okay, tell me the vibiest what?
Well, you know what? I think ultimately Toto is a cookie brand, but it's so much more than that because I completely agree. While the product is a cookie, it's almost like a feeling that you feel when you kind of land there. Yeah, that's what we're going for.
Okay. So I felt that feeling upon stumbling on your Instagram, stalked every single thing. And then I found myself on your page, stalked every single thing. And I just love what you're about. I love like the holistic aspect. I love how transparent you are about your journey. And you sent me the cookies and I just love the way they taste. So I'm like, Kate, we need you on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So here we are today. I'm so grateful. I want to talk to you a little bit about the brand just because my background is marketing, advertising, branding. And I only want to touch on this for a small bit of it because obviously this is the Butterfly Season podcast where we celebrate beauty and the transformation. But like, aesthetics, fire. Where did you come up with the name, the concept, the vibe? Tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Toto, the name, came from the Latin phrase in toto, which means to be whole or complete. And I'm sure we're going to touch on this, but because of my journey and really the whole mission of why the product and company exists, we really wanted people to embody this feeling of being whole when they tasted the product, interacted with the brand, and had any real piece to do with Toto. So that's where the name comes from. And then as far as the branding and the visual identity, I think that we were really excited to bring a sense of joy and wonder and excitement and love and brightness to one, yes, it's a cookie, but two, the basis of the brand and the basis of the story being my health journey was, in many ways anything but joyous and bright and lovely and airy. And so I think that we really wanted to show people that even with all kinds of things that you go through in your life, all the challenges that you encounter, they can be really beautiful and really joyous and bright, just like the brand is.
Yeah, I love that. It's perfect because I feel like with the brand, like there's some people who are like the face of like their food brand and it feels so like disjointed from where I feel like the times are currently. It's like very much like baby boomer vibe, like a random cutout of the person and like the shadows are off and it's just like not like doing what it's supposed to do. And yours is a very much like brand forward approach with you as a big part of it. So I just want to give you kudos there because I'm like obsessed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely vulnerable, I think, in some ways, really putting yourself out there. But I think that was the path that I knew I was taking when I started this brand. And I'm so grateful to see it resonating in such a real way for people.
Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit with respect to why you started the brand and how you were like sneaking things in your family's food. And like, this is like the inception of Toto. Can you share that story with the listeners? Because I actually like love it. And I feel like I could resonate with it a ton with like wanting my mom to like dabble in like plant medicine and like dabble in meditation and dabble in these things. And it's really hard to enroll people into these life-changing ideas or supplements or whatever they are because people are just stuck in their ways. So like, tell us about that story.
Absolutely. Well, the concept for Toto really started about 12 years ago. About 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe Crohn's disease, which in itself was such an insane journey. It took over a year of doing just about every test under the sun to find out what was wrong. And so I had been a really healthy kid up until that point, never had any health issues whatsoever. And I went from being a competitive soccer player to basically bedridden almost overnight. And so at 16, it was just such an insane shock to my system. I had no idea what Crohn's disease was. This was the days before Instagram. There were no gut health influencers. There was no functional medicine doctors I could just find online. It was really just what my doctor told me to do, and that was the thing that I did. And so I was put on close to 20 types of medication at one time. I was on all kinds of steroids and prescription drugs to try and manage my symptoms. And I felt for the next 3 years that I was on this path so incredibly medicated and so tired and so unembodied and so not myself. And I just knew that there had to be a better way. And so 3 years later, very serendipitously, I met an incredible holistic doctor who specialized in Crohn's and colitis. He himself has Crohn's. And even just hearing about what he did at that time was such a crazy thought to me that you could heal your body through food. And there was actually another way to do this and to feel good again and to feel like myself again. And so we ended up working together. And through our initial experience, just, looking at what I was actually eating, what was actually in the branded healthy products that my doctors were telling me to eat every day, what the medication was actually doing to either help my health or just cover up a symptom and really get to the root cause of what was going on for me. I got off of all medication working with him, got in the best shape of my life, even prior to playing soccer, and was really given what felt like a second lease on life because I was so inspired by what was possible again. And I felt like I had so much agency over my life. And it just was the first moment that I felt as a 19-year-old that we really do have so much control over our destiny, but we really have to be our own biggest advocate. And so I was really healthy for about 2 years, transferred into my university, went to USC. And my first semester there, all of my symptoms started coming back. Didn't know what it was, assumed it was Crohn's. Sometimes you can get a flare when you have all kinds of stressful situations happening in life. And I went to the doctor to get everything checked out. And after doing a few different types of tests, the results came back that I had early stage colon cancer, which there's never a good time to get a diagnosis like that. However, I was very, very lucky to catch it early, number one. And number two, I had a completely different outlook on what my healing journey could look like because of my entire experience with Crohn's and what had been so helpful for me, which was really looking at the holistic path for healing. And so I was given about a 3-month period between diagnosis and doing anything, any sort of treatment or surgery or anything like that. And during that time, I was researching a lot about plant-based diets, a lot about food as medicine. It was really like this second awakening of what that could mean for me. And during my first week after I was diagnosed, I was introduced to something called adaptogens, which are a class of superfoods that are known to help regulate stress in the body. If you live in places like LA or New York or maybe Chicago, they're probably infused in your expensive latte that you're buying every morning. But this was 7 years ago, and adaptogens really did not exist. I think Four Sigmatic as a company existed. They're a very popular adaptogenic coffee brand. But outside of that, there really wasn't a lot. It was very obscure. My doctors didn't even know what they were at the time. And the reason for that is adaptogens have been used for thousands of years in Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, but fortunately and unfortunately, these herbs and naturally occurring substances in nature are not patentable by our modern medicine society here in the United States. And so even though these things work, they aren't something that your doctor would necessarily prescribe because, again, fortunately and unfortunately, it's just not part of the current system.
Are you saying that to say that it's not, there's no money in it, and so there's no...
In a short answer, yes. I think that doctors are always doing the best they can with what they have, but most of them don't even, I mean, maybe now things are changing because I think the general consensus around health and what it means to be healthy is a lot more holistic or moving in that direction. But I think doctors aren't learning about holistic medicine when you're going to school to be a traditional doctor or a surgeon or oncologist, you know? And so they're taught if you have X disease, these are the potential medicines that treat it, and they treat you and kind of send you on your way. And so I decided for the next 3 months, I was going to go totally plant-based, start taking these adaptogens, which I had found so much research on to be incredibly helpful for not only things like helping to fight cancer, but also Crohn's disease and general inflammation. I mean, there's adaptogens for brain health and sexual health and being able to sleep better. Like you name it, there's an adaptogen for it.
So question for you, with respect to adaptogens, just to like bridge the gap, because I don't entirely know what Crohn's disease is. I don't entirely know what the symptoms are to make you think that your symptoms were Crohn's, but they were actually cancer. And also, I don't know the connection between adaptogens, stress, and alleviation of your symptoms. Could you like close that loop for me?
100%. So Crohn's disease, what it is. Crohn's disease is a type of autoimmune disease. Essentially, it affects people within their digestive tract, which can be anywhere from your mouth to the other end.
Oh, wow.
And it can be anywhere in between. For me,
Okay.
It affects right in the center of my gut. It's something that you can't reach with a colonoscopy or an endoscopy, which is like a procedure where they put a camera down your throat, which is part of the reason why it was so hard to find for me. And the only way I did find it was I did a procedure where you swallow a camera. It's a very small camera inside of a pill, and it takes pictures the entire way down your gut and then shows everything that a scope may not be able to see.
Oh my gosh. And then, sorry, I have a bunch of questions. We'll just keep answering and I'm just going to keep going.
Yes.
So the camera, you swallow it. It takes pictures as it goes. Is it like a disposable, meaning you can flush it down the toilet and then it doesn't matter, or you have to find it, give it back?
No, it is.
Okay.
You don't need to retrieve it. The day I did the procedure, you wear like a little satellite and the camera sends the pictures to the satellite, which then sends the pictures to the hospital. Yeah. Technology these days. It's an amazing thing.
What? Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So Crohn's manifests as far as like what they're looking for in the gut in something called ulcers or fissures. Essentially, the best way to explain it is almost like a tear in the gut or a blister within the gut. It essentially stops the gut from being able to do its job, which is absorb your food and nutrients. And when you eat something that is sensitive to your gut, and this is different for pretty much everyone with Crohn's disease, though I would say there is some core foods that just simply don't work. it can really hurt your ulcers. Sometimes if your ulcer tears or gets ruptured, you can have some internal bleeding. But the symptoms of it manifest in things like weight loss because you're not absorbing your food, hair loss because you're not absorbing your food and able to absorb nutrients, extreme fatigue, extreme abdominal pain. I initially thought I had
Mm.
appendicitis when I was trying to figure this out. A lot of brain fog because, again, the gut-brain connection is something that I know people are learning a lot more about now, but when you're not able to absorb your nutrients with Crohn's, if you're taking a lot of medication, all of that is going between the brain and the gut and back and forth. And so it manifests in a lot more than just stomach aches and hair loss, fatigue. It's very much a something that affects you mentally as well. It's
Yeah.
kind of fully all consuming within the body. And so how adaptogens essentially help Crohn's is adaptogens work with your adrenal glands, which are essentially the glands in your body that are responsible for producing a lot of hormones. One that we all know very well, cortisol. And cortisol is one of the most important hormones in the body because it is the hormone that triggers a lot of other responses to happen within the body. Cortisol can trigger fight or flight. Cortisol can trigger the happy hormones. It's almost like the initial start button for all of the other systems to start working within the body. And so when our body is constantly overstressed and not at homeostasis, our immune system is typically downregulated because we think we are in a constant state of fight or flight. And so we're not able to focus on healing ourselves. We are in just a state of trying to survive. And that affects so much more than your, gut. It is your brain, it is your heart, it is a full system, full body reaction. And so what adaptogens do is they help to bring your body back to homeostasis and make it so that you have a stronger threshold for stress when you do have stress come into your life, which we all do because this is the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So then we get to the point in your story where you're realizing that food can be helpful, can be healing, in fact, and adaptogens is one of the things, one of the ways in
Absolutely.
which to heal yourself.
And so during that 3-month period, I went totally plant-based. I was taking probably close to 10 different types of adaptogens. I was taking adaptogens for immunity, for, ones that were specific to fighting cancer. I was taking ones that were specific to gut health and reducing inflammation, etc.
Can you
And
name some of those? Like what? Because it's food. I mean, it's food.
so adaptogens are essentially, I think that if you've heard of Four Sigmatic, you are probably familiar with those. But adaptogens can be types of mushrooms, types of berries or barks or root of a tree, or other types of like medicinal herbs. That said, just because something is a bark or a berry or a herb doesn't mean that it's an adaptogen. They have to have that like homeostatic regulating property, which is relatively uncommon. I would say there's probably about 40 to 50 like well-recognized adaptogens, but in the
Wow.
United States at least, I would say that there's probably the most popular ones probably fall within the range of like 20 that I think I've seen people take
Wow.
a lot. So I was taking reishi, which is a mushroom amazing for inflammation. They call it the queen healer. That's its nickname in
Mm-hmm.
the adaptogen
Love
world.
that. Yeah.
I was taking another mushroom called lion's mane. It looks like a lion's mane. It's very white and furry looking. That's really amazing for inflammation as well, but also brain health. I was taking chaga. It looks like a piece of charcoal, but it's also a type of mushroom, and it's one of the best mushrooms for inflammation, hands down. If people are dealing with Crohn's, IBS, or general inflammation in the body, that's always one I recommend. I was also taking maca, which is really great for energy. It
Like
also
maca
happens to
root.
help with libido. Yes, maca root.
Okay.
And then I was also taking one of my favorite adaptogens that I like eat, live, swear by, breathe is turkey tail. It's also an adaptogenic mushroom. People ask a lot of the time if like what that really is, because we have turkey tail in our products. It is not a turkey's tail. It is a mushroom.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah. People are like, how is it vegan? I don't understand. But turkey tail is one of the most potent mushrooms for boosting immunity and has been studied quite extensively for its anti-cancer properties as well.
Wow.
And there's so many more, but I would say that those are, I love all the adaptogenic mushrooms. Maca is amazing. Ashwagandha, I know, is a popular one. I was also taking that as well. Another one called rhodiola rosea. I really had a full laundry list of the adaptogens I was consuming. And at the time, I was just mixing them into quite literally everything I was eating and drinking. Smoothies, oatmeal, like water, juices, just trying to get them down.
And were you doing this in pill form?
I was doing it in a powder form, but they do also come in pill form. One thing I will say, though, when it comes to adaptogens, as it also works for other ingredients in foods, the sourcing of where adaptogens come from is extremely important. Most adaptogens do not come from China. So if you're buying an adaptogen that says made in China, grown in China, etc., it's 99.9% of the time not going to be actually from the source and have the potent, amazing abilities that adaptogens are known for. There's some brands that have some really incredible testing as part of their process. Four Sigmatic is one of them. So they test for heavy metals. They also test for potency within the product. And I feel like that's extremely important because, as with anything you put into your body, you really want to know like what it is, if it is what it says it is,
right,
and what you can expect from taking the product.
Okay, this is so helpful. And I know I literally asked you a question about like, how did you get started in healing yourself? But like this stuff, oh my God, I literally zero idea. I would have just like Googled like adaptogens and then just grabbed whatever from wherever. So this is so helpful.
100%. So to wrap up that story, I was on the adaptogen bandwagon, taking them every day, was vegan. Also started incorporating other types of healing in the sense of, I think I looked at my healing process and I think I look at my life as how am I addressing each part of my body, like internally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and how can I make sure I'm setting myself up to be successful, especially in a time where I know my body is under more stress than usual when I'm sick. And so I started to do random acts of kindness almost every day. To essentially generate feelings of joy and happiness and gratitude and get my like emotional center, heart center right.
Wow.
And then I also started I started moving my body again every day. Nothing intense at first, but like going for a walk or doing like a light workout just to get my body feeling right and feeling connected in my body. And then there was the like food and health and wellness aspect with the things I was actually eating and the adaptogens. And I went back to the doctor 3 months later to essentially see what was going to happen, what the future was going to hold for me. And after taking another test of the polyp in my colon, the results came back that I was completely cancer-free.
Wait, I don't think we talked about that part.
Maybe we didn't get through the whole story.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Were the doctors like, what in the actual fuck what did you do?
So short answer, yes. I think my doctors were kind of chalked it up to being early stage and Crohn's, that's always something that you have to watch for because I'm already prone to developing things like that. So I have to get screened via a colonoscopy every single year, if not twice a year. And so my doctors were like, this is amazing, but they didn't really, they essentially said, let's see how you're doing.
I'm like, I need them to give you all of the credit. Like, I would be like, doctors, I need more from you. Like, I worked really hard for this.
Let's put a statue here in the hospital. I think I was just, I mean, I was so happy, but they were like, we've seen things like this happen before where things will get better and then get worse. Colon cancer is typically pretty aggressive. So they weren't sure that I was out of the clear, but that was 7 years ago. And knock on wood, I have been completely healthy. No cancer scares since.
It's so interesting because I feel like I've never actually heard the story told like in this format, not from you, but the story of like healing yourself. I've heard it only through like meditation, which is, getting your body, your mind regulated. Absolutely. And in the same way, stress down regulates your DNA and pulls the aspects of your DNA sequence that manifests disease. That's the same is true when you upgrade your DNA, when you do get regulated, emotionally regulated, operate from your heart center, have mind and heart coherence, and then move through life. It's the same reason why like people heal themselves at Joe Dispenza. Like
I was just going to say his name. I'm reading and listening to 2 of his books. And
yes.
I've heard and read so much about that too. And meditation is such a huge piece of that for me as well. But I think I've always taken like this full body approach, mind, body, spirit, etc.
Yeah. Okay. This is like so amazing, especially on the food level. Cause I never put 2 and 2 together in that way. And I'm actually like mind blown right now. So now that you did that, and then we're trying now get to the part where, or tell me about the part where we're trying to enroll your family in the same idea.
Yes. My family is not the superfood seeking types. And I feel like many people probably listening to this podcast would agree that if your parents are anything like mine, they are of the mindset that you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh my gosh. My mom will say things like, I'm just set in my ways. I'm like, the fact that you have the awareness means that you can also change the ways that you're set in.
You totally could. 100%. Yeah. And like I said, 7 years ago, adaptogens were very strange. They still are relatively niche depending on where you live. But they were not into the idea of taking all of these weird powders. And I didn't really blame them because they don't taste very good on their own. They are, like I said, types of mushrooms and barks and herbs. Like those things don't exactly make me say, delicious. So I was trying to think of a way that I could hide these things in the foods that they were already eating. Because I wanted them to have the benefit of these adaptogens, even if they didn't know that they were. And so I had this idea. We would eat Toll House cookies every single night without fail for dessert after dinner. And I had this idea to hide these adaptogens in the cookies that we were eating. But I knew that obviously, with all of my life experience up to that point, I was an avid label reader. I knew that Toll House weren't healthy. And I knew that there had to be a better vehicle for these adaptogens. And so that was really where the concept started, was how can I make this vehicle of a cookie made with all of the superfoods I've been eating over the last however many years to heal myself, feel good in my body, and things that are incredibly decadent and delicious, and then infuse it with these adaptogens so that they can have the delicious ooey gooey cookie experience that they want to have, and I get to have all of the benefit of knowing that they're, healing their bodies at the same time.
Totally. And then the first time that you did it, were they able to taste that something was different?
So the initial, I will say this, I was not in any way a culinary gifted gal. I went to school for marketing at USC, and this idea was really just that. It was an idea. And so I started from ground zero, and I started doing all kinds of research on vegan baking, gluten-free baking, substitutes for various ingredients. And I tested in my kitchen for my entire senior year of college. And every recipe, for the most part, up until the very last one that they tried, was not good at all. I mean, I
Oh my
watched them try
gosh.
and choke things down. And I really was so close to just throwing in the towel. I was like, what am I doing? I have no baking background. This is crazy. I'm in school for marketing. Like, it sounds like a great idea, but maybe this is like just not what I'm cut out for. And finally, I will never forget the day that I made the first recipe that would become Toto. It was my family. I had some friends over for a little taste test, and they asked me where I had bought the cookies. They were like, these are amazing. These are so good. And I was like, oh, you guys think I bought these? Like, I made these. I think I might be onto something. And so by that point, no, I mean, I could convince even the person that, would never eat a superfood in their entire life that these were the best cookies in the entire world.
Nice. I love that. And so when you were doing like the R&D at
Mm-hmm.
home, like I picture like, my parents for the first batch would be like, oh yeah, it's good. Like
Yeah.
not quite telling you the truth, but like just trying to support. Was that how it
Yeah.
was?
They were, my dad was very sweet and supportive. And my mom, I would say, was, relatively kind about it too. But my little sister, it has always been one to speak her mind. And she was like, these are gross. let's not give this to anyone else. And so it was really great. I mean, I'm so happy that I had that honest feedback. And to be honest, I knew that they weren't amazing myself when I tried them either. But I think having those people around you in the beginning of something, people that you can really trust to be honest with you, is so important. So important.
Yeah, that's so helpful. You are better than me. I can make something so nasty and I would be like, well, like I'll still eat it.
Yeah, I'll still eat it. Well, yeah, because you'll eat it because you made it. It's a certain sense of pride that goes into making it. Yes.
It is. I'm like, you know what? If I made this, I'm going to eat it.
I'm going to eat it. Don't want it to go to waste. Yeah.
Yes. So talk to me about this journey with Toto. It's so beautiful. How has that impacted like on the personal development front? I feel like that's so abstract in my opinion for people, and it's so unique to their experiences, where like from a medicinal standpoint, it's like, okay, I'm trying this. This is my metric. I'm trying this. This is my metric. It's very like masculine, I feel like.
Yeah.
Did anything transform within you during that time when you were like healing yourself?
You mean before I even started the company?
I mean, before and to now, like what did that look like? I imagine the Sydney before is like completely different than who she is now,
They could not be more different people. I think that I've always had a very clear feeling and knowing in like my heart of hearts that I was meant to make a significant impact. And I think I've also been through a lot of tough stuff in my life. I mean, Crohn's and cancer, even though that could be enough, that really just kind of scratches the surface for, I think, the entirety of things I've experienced. And I feel like everyone has their stuff. And I think that I always inherently knew that these hard things that I was going through was like preparing me for something, and that I was going to be able to take these experiences and show people how to do it themselves to an extent, and that they could do it, and that they could be empowered and really, step into who they are and not like stand back from it. To be honest, I could not be more grateful for everything that has happened in my life. And I think because I have such a strong why for why I'm doing this, which is to spread the message of food as medicine and to hopefully empower and inspire other people to really take the power back over their own lives, both with their health and beyond. I think that even when there is hard days, which with anything you're doing, especially starting a business, there is going to be, I've always had a very clear line of sight on the fact that I'm still moving forward and not let the various challenges that have come up stop me or slow me down. When you are doing something as big as starting your own venture, you have to be so rooted in that why, and you have to believe that you're the only person that can bring it into the world in the way that you can, because yes, there are other people in the world doing similar things, but no one can say it, no one can do it, no one can embody it like you do. And you're here for a very specific reason. And I think remembering that uniqueness in each of us is such an insanely valuable asset and honestly necessity when you're going into something like this, because you have to know that this is why I'm here and this is what I'm meant for, regardless of, all of the things standing in the way.
Totally. What was your biggest challenge in bringing this product to market? Because this is no longer just something that you're doing in your kitchen. Like, you are in multiple storefronts in a lot of locations. This is a very well-known brand. I was just raving about you to a friend, my friend Hannah from Powerhouse Women, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, how did you meet her? How did you talk to her? I've been trying to get a hold of her brand. Like, I want to incorporate her in this event. And I was like, wait, what? This is like so crazy. She's like, no, like, this brand is like a big deal. So maybe before we get there, can you highlight some of the like wins, just so people can really get context of like the impact that Toto has had from your apartment when you were in college to now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started this before Toto was called Toto. It was actually called Made By. And Made By was what the company was when it was just me. When I graduated college, I started working full time for Thrive Market, was there for about 6 months, and then, like every brilliant entrepreneur, quit my job without a backup plan and went all in on this. And though it's not something I would necessarily recommend, I think it gave me the kick in the butt to go and, not really have a fallback and find a way to make it work. And so for the first year, it was just me in my 1-bedroom apartment in Culver City and then 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica. And when I first started the brand, I figured out how to make a website because I didn't even have enough money to pay rent and get ingredients to make the product. And so the pre-sale allowed for enough money to be generated to do that, pay rent, get the ingredients, ship out the first orders, and I was kind of off to the races. And for the first year, it was just me in my kitchen, making everything, packaging everything, shipping everything out. I started walking into coffee shops in the area and pitching them on my bakery that I had and telling them that I had these amazing cookies that they needed to try. And one coffee shop said yes, then another coffee shop said yes, then another coffee shop, and then a grocery store chain. And I was so scrappy with it. It was quite literally just me walking in, meeting people face to face, making relationships, sharing my story. And I didn't have any fancy bells and whistles. I had a very janky logo, very janky branding at the time, but I had a mission and a great product. And that was really how we first started to build. Since then, a lot has changed. We are currently a team of 6 now. I am a co-founder of Toto with my boyfriend, Bennett, and he's also our COO, which is also such an amazing dynamic, which I think is also so important to talk about, starting a business with your significant other or being in business with your significant other. So it's a team of 6 of us now. And last year, we decided we were going to shift from making cookie dough, which we were making, to making only cookies. And so I would say for the last 6 months of last year, we took the product out of every single store we were in. We decided we were going to focus on cookies. So we had to find a manufacturer, change the product, change the packaging, change the branding, change the website, change quite literally every piece of the brand, both external and internal. And as of January of this year, because we had pulled product out, we were in 0 locations. And in February, we launched in 750 locations in Vitamin Shop nationwide. We became one of their fastest growing products in the category. And then since February to now, we are in just over 2,000 doors and will be in over just about 4,000 by the end of the year. So it's been a big year of growth for us in 2023.
Yes.
To go from 0 to 4,000. But it could not be possible without every single person on our team. And honestly, every single person out there in the community supporting us and supporting the brand and being a part of the story and the vision. It's felt like a very collective building experience. It's our team, but I think we are just very heavily influenced by the people that are kind of, in our circle as well.
Totally. That is so amazing. And I hope that that's something that you celebrate, because that's a really big deal. Even the like pivot to like where we are now, that's huge. And we're
Thank you.
Barely halfway through the year. So kudos to you. I would love to know if you have 2 tips for working with a significant other, because I know that is a lot of people's journey. And it's one of those things, much like entrepreneurship, you don't know what you don't know. And you go into something bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and nobody tells you like, hey, careful of this, careful for this, careful for this. You just kind of like stumble your way through figuring it out. What would you say would be like your top 2 or 3 tips for people who are thinking about going into partnership with their partner, or actually being in a partnership with their partner?
Yeah. So I would say Bennett and I's relationship started in a very unique way where we were friends first and we had feelings for each other. I had feelings for him first. And it was kind of like a very slow roll into a relationship. But I think because of where we were both at in our friendship and really valuing having relationship with each other, regardless of what that was, we prioritized the hell out of extreme honesty in our relationship, whether it was friendship, romantic, and otherwise. I think that because we were friends first and really valued each other as people, we really valued the other person knowing exactly where we were at and not feeling like we had to hold anything back. And I think because our relationship started on such a radically honest and open foundation throughout our relationship, even and especially when things are uncomfortable, I think we're both so aware and self-aware of both ourselves and each other that when something feels off, we're not one to ignore it. We kind of just talk about it when it happens. And we talk about it super openly and honestly and obviously with compassion. But I think we had such a strong level of open and honest, radically honest communication established from the very beginning of being with each other that fully translated into working together. And I think that you have to have that, because in business, I mean, your whole, I often joke and say that like running a business is really just signing up to be like an expert problem solver, because that's all you're really doing. That's all you're doing. You're finding different problems to solve for, however long your business is in business for. And being able to work together as a team is amazing, but sometimes people disagree. Sometimes you're going to say something that makes someone a little upset. Sometimes, it's not going to be as simple as like working through a single problem in a day. And you're going to have stress together as the business goes through stress together. And so I think that prioritizing the communication and knowing that you have that makes it feel like there's a safe container to work together, because you're going to talk about something when you're upset and you're not going to let things fester, because you have a responsibility to each other in a relationship and also to the business and to your entire team. So radical honesty, number one. Number two, this is a bit more, I guess, nuanced, but I think we've found that it's something that has worked really well for us. Bennett and I have very different skill sets. He's amazing with all things operations, finance, legal, etc. And I really handle a lot of like brand marketing, vision, story. And I think that why that's important is because if both you and your partner like to do all of the same things, I feel like I've seen it happen where it can start to feel like they're kind of stepping on your toes or maybe trying to, improve something, but then it might feel like they're, not valuing your work, etc. And so while that's not necessary, I think that that's something that's worked super well for us for sure.
Totally. I mean, I can see that with marketing. I would always tell people like, marketing is like the practice of medicine. You go to one person, one person, one person. You guys can all have the same goals in mind, but like everyone's approach is a little bit different. So I can definitely see there being conflict on that front for two people who are like, yeah, I want to be the like story, vision, brand marketing person. So that's interesting. Like during COVID, actually, my husband and I both were working from home. And I remember being like, that was a huge transition because we had never been in the same place for that long of a time. Like he played football, I would be working from home. Like working from home was like the home was my office type of thing. Like he was never my coworker like in the office with me. Yeah. And so after COVID, like things transitioned, and when he was done with football, he was working from home. And I remember thinking like, there's no on and off button anymore. Like when you would come home, it was off. Like I was, like the wife and like, it was just fine. But now it's like, we're like same. Like I wake up, we work, we eat, we go, and like nothing's changed. And that was something that we had to navigate through. And so I'm curious, like, because in business, all of the like traits that you have in business show up in your real life too. Absolutely. But when you have the separation of like a building, like, or something to go to, it gives the appearance of a separation. Was there anything on the personal development front or on the relationship front that, manifested itself in business and that you realized it was also in your relationship too? One of the things for us was, I realized in business, not that him and I work together, but we do work in the same house, and he does help me a ton with my business. He's like an insane creative, so he has a lot of like say in places. But one thing that showed up for me in business in previous business partnerships was like codependency. And when I realized and followed that thread, I realized, well, there's a little bit of it in my marriage and then in other friendships. And so that was something that we had to work through. I'm curious, as you guys navigated from early days to like what you are now, was there anything that was like, okay, this is something that we had to navigate and it was like a bigger ticket item?
Yeah, totally. First of all, I completely agree with you on like the, having this illusion of an on and off switch. And I think pretty much for most of our relationship, we moved in together very quickly in our relationship. I think it was 3 or 4 months after dating each other, and we moved in together, and then we started working together full time. So it was a lot of shifts happening at once. And I think that one thing that we do now to like kind of switch out of work mode into personal mode is at the end of the day, we will typically like ask each other a really like thoughtful question. And then it's followed by like a long hug or like something to almost like, for me, one of my love languages physical touch. So I feel like the feeling of being held almost helps you to release the stress of the day. And I feel like that's something that maybe people should look into, like knowing what kind of help really speaks to you love language wise. But as far as what we've worked through and like realized common thread wise, personal and relationship, I think the big one is just general insecurities that become extremely highlighted when you're working in a business together. Because I think they're seeing all sides of you and there's not really anywhere to hide. I mean, Bennett works about 5 feet away from me that way. He's not in the office right now, but I mean, you're kind of always there. You see it all and there's not really anywhere to physically hide or like metaphorically hide. And so I think that what's come up for me is like I've felt a lot of imposter syndrome stepping into this next chapter as the brand continues to grow. And I think that it's been really interesting to see how these triggers can come up in business, but it's almost a really beautiful gift because then it kind of forces you to face them in real life as well.
Right. It is a beautiful gift. And I feel like all of it is. And when I finally have wrapped my head around the perspective that like I play a really big part in every drama of my life, good or bad, you realize that when they do manifest itself, you're like, okay, I know that this is for me. I know that this is setting me up for something even better. And like, let's just work through it and be done with it. But I think that's really beautiful. And I appreciate you sharing the part that people kind of don't talk about. I think it is the sexier version of things is like, I healed myself and I want to help other people. But like the non-sexy part is like, sometimes I have to address my own shit in relation to 100%. My business and working with my business partner.
Yeah. And I think, like Bennett and I just went on a little getaway, just still in LA, but we took the weekend to like fully unplug from work. And I think that because we were both reaching a little bit of a breaking point with all of the stress that was going on. And I think, again, a lot of people don't talk about that piece of it either. But I think take breaks when you need to take breaks. I think my default is to run myself into a wall. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I should have taken a break. And I'm still learning how to like do that before I reach that point. There's so many ways that it's amazing, but it takes work and it takes effort and it takes a conscious effort from both people to really be able to do that successfully. It's a commitment. It almost feels like a marriage. It really does.
Oh my gosh, it's a double marriage. I feel like when people are in business partnership, they're like, yeah, like we're married, but like, no, like you're like married and married. Like it's like double whammy. Like there's actually, it's 100%. Double the effect.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you and adore you so much. I'm so grateful that you dropped so much knowledge. I was just thinking, like, when you were talking, I'm going to have to listen back to this so I can start to take some notes on all the list of adaptogens that I need in my life. You are just beautiful inside and out, and like quite literally inside, like not on the soul front, of course, but like I know that you've healed a lot in your body, so I can probably speak to that being beautiful too. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey. It really does just like put a beautiful bow and underscore like the beauty in the transformation, right? Like you had to transform into a higher version of yourself to upgrade your DNA, to heal yourself from cancer, to be able to spread this message to so many people. Like thinking about the seeds that you've planted all along the way, your impact is so far reaching, even just outside of having a product-based business. And I think that is incredibly beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your energy with me today.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely lovely. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it too for all of the knowledge bombs you dropped.
Thank you. Thank you.